I, 29, female, honestly don't even know where to begin with this mess. 5 years ago, my mom, 56, female, met Greg, 34, male, at her workplace. She's an executive assistant at a marketing firm, and he was hired as the new marketing director. I remember her calling me all excited about this charming young man who had asked her out for coffee. At first, I was happy for her. My dad passed away when I was 18, and she hadn't seriously dated anyone since then. It was nice to see her smiling and excited about someone again. But even from the beginning, something felt off about Greg. He was only 5 years older than me, and the way he looked at my mom wasn't what I'd call affectionate. It was more calculating. It was like he was always assessing her, like he knew exactly what to say and how to act to get her wrapped around his finger. But she was absolutely smitten. She couldn't believe someone so young and attractive wanted to be with her. She told me over and over how he made her feel young again, how he was different from anyone she'd ever been with, how she had finally found the one. I wanted to be happy for her, but something about the whole thing made me uneasy. It wasn't just the age gap. It was how fast everything was moving. Within months, she was talking about him like he was her soulmate. 3 months into their relationship, she introduced him to me, and I just didn't like him. He was polite on the surface, but there was something in his demeanor that made me feel like he was putting on an act. Still, I kept my concerns to myself. I didn't want to be the bad guy. Then, 8 months after they started dating, Mom called me and announced they were getting married, just like that. No long engagement, no planning, no second thoughts. I remember hesitating before I responded because I didn't want to say something that would upset her. But I gently suggested they slow down, maybe move in together first, see how they handled real life together. And she immediately shut me down. "You just don't want me to be happy," she snapped. That stung. I backed off after that because I didn't want to ruin our relationship. A few weeks later, they got married in a small courthouse ceremony. I was the only family member there. After they got married, things started changing fast. Greg moved into my mom's house, the house I grew up in, the house my dad had left to her. I lived about an hour away, finishing my master's degree, but I visited as often as I could. Every time I came over, Greg made little comments about how I was always around and how I needed to move on with my life. It was subtle, but the message was clear. I wasn't really welcome. And my mom? She never defended me. She just laughed it off or changed the subject. Then, about 6 months into their marriage, my mom called me and said she was updating her will and estate planning. She told me Greg had suggested it was the responsible thing to do now that they were married. At the time, I didn't think much of it. It made sense in a way. When you get married, you update things like that, right? So I didn't push back. The real turning point happened about a year after they got married. I had come over for the weekend to help Mom clean out some of my dad's old things from the garage. Something she had been avoiding for years. Greg was supposed to be on a business trip, so I thought it would just be me and Mom. But late that first night, he came home unexpectedly. Mom had gone to bed early with a migraine, and I was up watching TV in the living room. Greg came in, sat way too close to me on the couch, and started asking weirdly personal questions about my dating life. It made me uncomfortable, so I shifted away and tried to keep things light, but something about the way he was looking at me gave me chills. I went to bed early just to get away from him. The next morning, I woke up to screaming. Greg was in their bedroom yelling at my mom, saying I had come on to him the night before. He claimed I had flirted with him, touched his leg, and suggested we have some fun while she was asleep. I was in complete shock. None of that had happened, but he was so convincing, so outraged that my mom actually believed him. I tried to defend myself, but he twisted everything I said, making me look guilty. And my mom, my own mother, told me to pack my things and leave. She said she needed space to think. I couldn't believe it. I begged her to listen to me, to see through his lies, but she was completely under his spell. I left that day in tears, feeling like my whole world had crumbled. For weeks, I tried calling her, but she barely answered, and when she did, she was cold and distant. Greg had been feeding her lies, telling her I had bad-mouthed her to family members, which I never did, and that I had mental health issues that made me delusional. I was heartbroken. My mom and I had always been close, but now she saw me as a threat. For the next 2 years, our relationship was reduced to the occasional birthday call and awkward holiday visits. I focused on my life, finished my degree, got a job at a law firm as a paralegal, and tried to move on. I dated a little, but nothing serious. Mostly I buried myself in work and tried not to think about how my mom had chosen her manipulative husband over me. About 8 months ago, I got a phone call from my mom that I never expected. She was crying so hard it took a few minutes before I could even understand what she was saying. Eventually, through the sobs, I pieced together what had happened. She had just found out that Greg had been cheating on her. Not just once, he had been having multiple affairs, including one with a woman she considered a close friend from work. She was devastated, blindsided, and already talking about filing for divorce. Hearing her so broken was hard. This was my mom, someone I had known my whole life to be strong, independent, and in control. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the complicated feelings that came rushing in. As much as I sympathized with her pain, I also felt a cold, undeniable hesitation. I didn't drop everything and rush to be by her side like I might have in the past. Maybe that was petty of me, but I couldn't just forget what she had done, how easily she had believed Greg's lies about me, how quickly she had pushed me out of her life when I had done nothing wrong. Now she wanted my support, but where had her support been when I needed it? As the divorce proceedings started, more unsettling truths began to unravel. It turned out that Greg hadn't just betrayed her emotionally. He had also been systematically taking over nearly every aspect of her finances. Over the course of their marriage, he had convinced her to put almost everything in his name or in joint accounts. The house, which she had once owned outright, had been refinanced and placed in both their names, tying her to him financially in a way that was now coming back to haunt her. Her retirement savings, something she had spent years building up, was now intertwined with his. Even cherished family heirlooms, items that had been in our family for generations, had been reappraised and insured under his name. But the worst blow came when she realized just how much legal control he had managed to gain. 2 years ago, he had gotten her to sign estate planning documents that put all of her assets into a trust, with him listed as the sole beneficiary and executor. She swore she hadn't understood what she was signing at the time. Greg had framed it as nothing more than a routine update to their wills, something married couples did to keep things simple. Now it was clear this had been his plan all along. She was staring down the terrifying possibility of losing almost everything: the house, her retirement, even the possessions that held sentimental value. Her lawyer was doing what they could to fight back, but legally speaking, the documents she had signed were solid, and Greg wasn't backing down. In fact, he was pushing for more. Despite earning more than she did, he was demanding alimony, arguing that he had grown accustomed to a certain standard of living. He was even threatening to force the sale of the house if she couldn't afford to buy him out, which she absolutely couldn't. Then last week, she called me again, and this time it wasn't just to update me on the divorce, she was asking for something much bigger. She wanted to stay with me, at least for a little while. She sounded different on this call. More than just sad, she sounded embarrassed. She kept apologizing not just for what had happened with Greg, but also for how she had treated me. She admitted that, deep down, she had probably always known I would never have done what Greg accused me of. But at the time, she had been so afraid of losing him that she ignored that voice in her head, convincing herself that he must be telling the truth. And Greg had made it easy for her to believe him. He had slowly isolated her from many of her friends, making her feel he was the only person in her life she could truly rely on. Now she saw it for what it was: manipulation, plain and simple. But it was too late to undo the damage he had done, both to her life and to our relationship. There was no simple answer to this. She was my mother, and despite everything, it hurt to see her like this, broken, ashamed, with no real idea of what her future looked like. But at the same time, I couldn't forget the pain she had caused me. She had turned on me so easily, pushing me aside without hesitation, and that kind of betrayal didn't just disappear overnight. Beyond the emotional side of things, there were also practical concerns. If she lost everything in the divorce, what then? Could I afford to support her? I had a stable life, but I wasn't in a position to take on someone else's financial burden indefinitely. And even if I could, did I want to? Could I trust that she wouldn't make the same mistakes again, or let someone else come into her life and do the same thing Greg had done? For now, I had told her she could stay with me temporarily while I sorted through my own feelings, but beyond that, I honestly didn't know. Was I being too cold? Was it wrong to hold on to the resentment I still felt when she was clearly at rock bottom? Or was it fair to set boundaries given everything that had happened? I didn't have the answers. I just knew that this situation felt impossible, and I couldn't help but wonder, had anyone else been through something like this? A parent choosing a partner over their own child, only to come crawling back when it all fell apart? Right now, all I could do was take things one step at a time and figure out what came next. Update 1. First, I want to express my gratitude for all the advice and support. The number of responses was overwhelming, but they gave me a lot to think about and helped me process this situation more clearly. Mom moved into my spare bedroom 2 days ago. The atmosphere has been awkward, but not as bad as I initially feared. She has been extremely careful about respecting my space and my routine, almost as if she's afraid of overstepping. It's clear she doesn't want to do anything that might push me further away. We've had a few honest conversations, and she has repeatedly apologized for believing Greg over me. One of the most emotional moments was when she broke down and admitted that deep down, she had always known I would never do what Greg accused me of. She had just been so terrified of being alone again that she convinced herself otherwise. She thought that she finally found someone who truly wanted her, and that fear of losing him overpowered her instincts. I can understand why she felt that way, and even if the pain of what she did still lingers and forgiveness isn't something I can offer just yet. Yesterday, I went with her to meet her divorce attorney, and the situation turned out to be even worse than she originally explained. The lawyer confirmed that the estate planning documents she had signed 2 years ago were legally binding. Even if she didn't fully grasp what she was signing at the time, they were still valid. The biggest complication is the house. It was originally in her name alone since my dad left it to her, but about a year into her marriage with Greg, they refinanced it together, putting both their names on it. This, along with the issue of shared assets and the significant debt Greg accumulated under their joint accounts, makes things much more complex than she had realized. The lawyer outlined a few possible strategies to fight back. One option is to argue that Greg exercised undue influence over Mom when she signed those estate documents, especially if we can provide evidence that he isolated her from her family and friends. Another option is negotiating a settlement that might allow her to retain some of her assets, even if it means losing the house. The lawyer also mentioned the potential for investigating Greg's financial actions more closely to see if he engaged in any misconduct that could strengthen Mom's case. After a lot of thinking, I've decided to support Mom through this, but with very clear boundaries. I let her know that she is welcome to stay with me for 3 months while she figures out her next steps. But beyond that, I can't offer financial support. I will provide a safe place for her to stay and help with groceries, but I won't be taking on any of her financial burdens. I also insisted that she start seeing a therapist to work through everything that happened and to understand why she was so vulnerable to Greg's manipulation in the first place. To my relief, she agreed to both conditions without argument. One thing that has become clearer through reading everyone's comments is that Greg's behavior follows a pattern seen in predatory men who specifically target older, vulnerable women. Mom admitted that when she and Greg first met, she had recently received a small inheritance from her late aunt, about $50,000. Early in their relationship, she had casually mentioned it to him. And looking back now, that's when his interest in her seemed to grow much stronger. She also recalled how he often pushed her to upgrade or sell off certain family heirlooms, viewing them purely as potential sources of cash rather than items of sentimental value. I'm still working through my feelings about all of this. There is still a lot of hurt and frustration towards Mom, but my anger towards Greg continues to grow as well. While Mom made poor choices, Greg deliberately and systematically exploited her weaknesses for his own gain. It's hard to process just how calculated and manipulative his actions were. I plan to update again in a few days once we learn more about the legal situation. For now, I'm focusing on helping Mom organize all the financial records and paperwork the lawyer requested, while also making sure I protect my own mental health through all of this. It's a lot to handle, but I'm taking it one step at a time. Update 2. Past few days have been overwhelming with new developments that could change everything. Mom's lawyer called with some potentially game-changing information. During the discovery process, they found evidence suggesting that Greg may have forged Mom's signature on at least 2 significant financial documents. One document is related to a home equity line of credit, and the other involves transferring her personal investment account into a joint account. What makes this even more suspicious is that the signatures on these documents don't match Mom's usual signature, and the dates align with the time when she was out of town visiting her sister. The lawyer believes this could be a major break in the case, potentially strengthening Mom's legal position and even leading to criminal charges against Greg for fraud. To confirm the suspicions, they are bringing in a handwriting expert to analyze the signatures. Additionally, they have filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets while the investigation unfolds. For the first time in months, Mom is starting to feel hopeful that she might actually have a fighting chance to reclaim some of what she lost. Adding another unexpected twist to the situation, Greg's current girlfriend reached out to Mom through Facebook. She's only 24 and was originally an intern at the marketing firm where Greg worked. She started dating him about 6 months ago under the impression that he was already separated from Mom. Recently, she moved in with him and discovered some unsettling things. Among them was a notebook where Greg appeared to be tracking Mom's schedule and financial details. Even more disturbing, the notebook contained a list of other potential targets, women he had identified as having assets he could take advantage of. The girlfriend, clearly spooked by what she found, began secretly photographing the documents and offered to share them with Mom. She even said she would be willing to testify if necessary. Processing this new information has been difficult. If everything the girlfriend claims is true, Greg isn't just a manipulative opportunist. He's a calculated predator who has a system for identifying and exploiting vulnerable women. The lawyer is being cautious and wants to verify the authenticity of the documents before making any moves. But if they are legitimate, this could be crucial evidence in the case against Greg. On a more personal note, living with Mom has gradually become more comfortable. We're settling into a routine, and she seems to be regaining some of the confidence that Greg stripped away from her. She's already attended 2 therapy sessions and says that they've been helpful. She's also reconnected with old friends she lost touch with during her marriage, which has been good for her. One evening, after a glass of wine, Mom confided something to me that was heartbreaking. She admitted that on the night Greg accused me of making a move on him, she hadn't actually believed him right away. Her first instinct was that he was lying, but he threatened to leave her if she took my side. He told her that if she doubted him, it meant she didn't truly love or trust him. Knowing that she had already lost my dad and has struggled with abandonment issues since his passing, Greg manipulated that fear to make her believe that I was the real threat to her happiness, not him. Now, looking back, she's ashamed of how easily he was able to control her emotions and turn her against her own daughter. I can see that the shame she feels about betraying me might be even worse than the financial ruin he left her in. I'm still keeping my boundaries, but I can feel myself softening towards her. She's my mom, and even though she made a massive mistake, it's clear she was preyed upon by someone who knew exactly how to exploit her weaknesses. The road ahead is still uncertain. The legal battle could drag on for months, maybe even years, and there's no guarantee that Mom will recover everything she lost. But for the first time, there is a real possibility that Greg won't walk away unscathed, and that alone is a small victory. Update 3. I'm still in complete shock as I sit here writing this. It doesn't even feel real yet. Just yesterday, Greg was actually arrested. Like arrested. Handcuffed, read his rights and taken into police custody right there at my mom's workplace. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. This all started moving really fast after Mom's lawyer filed an emergency motion to freeze her financial accounts. They'd uncovered some serious red flags. Suspected forgeries, weird signatures, inconsistencies in dates on documents Greg had supposedly helped her with. That kind of thing. It was enough for the court to put an immediate hold on several accounts. I guess Greg found out somehow, and that's when everything started unraveling. According to Mom's lawyer, Greg totally freaked out, like full-on panic mode. He apparently tried to liquidate some of the accounts, pulling out large sums of money and trying to wire it to offshore banks. The banks thankfully flagged it instantly. Fraud alerts were triggered, transactions were blocked, and one bank even contacted the authorities directly. That move alone put him on law enforcement's radar. But that wasn't enough for him, apparently. When the money transfer didn't go through, Greg showed up at Mom's job, unannounced, during office hours. He made a huge scene, yelling and demanding to speak with her, accusing her of betrayal. It scared the hell out of her co-workers. Security had to step in, and when they couldn't calm him down, they called the police. He was arrested on the spot for harassment and disturbing the peace. But here's the craziest part. When they processed him at the station, they discovered there was already a warrant out for his arrest from a neighboring state. Turns out, Greg had pulled a similar scheme on an ex-girlfriend a few years ago before he ever met my mom. That case had been cold because he vanished before charges could be filed, but the warrant was still active. After the arrest, the police got a search warrant for his apartment. And what they found, honestly, it chilled me to the bone. His entire place was basically a con artist's headquarters. They found detailed files on at least 5 women, 5, who all fit a similar profile: older, financially comfortable or well off, often divorced or widowed or living somewhat independently. He had notes on their assets, timelines of their relationships, and even comments about how to manipulate each one based on their insecurities. It was methodical, disturbing, and clearly a pattern. Included in what they seized was the infamous notebook his current girlfriend had mentioned, the one he always carried but never let her read. Turns out it was filled with scripts, notes, and even copied financial documents from his victims. One part that really hit me hard was a script he wrote out for confronting the families of his victims, like their adult kids, siblings, or close friends who questioned his involvement. And I swear to you, some of the phrases in there were word for word the things he said to my mom about me when he convinced her to cut me off. He actually wrote out manipulative speeches. I can't even describe the mix of rage and sadness I felt reading that. Mom's lawyer says that this discovery changes everything. Now that there's clear evidence of fraud, coercion, and a repeated pattern of financial manipulation, she's a lot more confident they can reverse most, if not all, of the transactions Greg pressured Mom into. That includes her signing over estate documents, changing beneficiaries, and even some account access changes he snuck into her paperwork. The DA's office is moving forward with serious charges. Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and financial elder abuse. And even though my mom isn't elderly by legal standards, the law in our state has an expanded definition that covers cases like this, where there's a significant age difference and a pattern of financial grooming and control. Greg's current girlfriend has also been cooperating fully. She's been handing over texts and messages where Greg bragged about securing his future and saying things like, "Once I get her to sign the trust, I'm set for life." She had no idea he was using her as a backup target. I can't imagine how betrayed she must feel, finding out the man she was dating was not only a fraud, but someone who might have tried to scam her too. As for my mom and me, this whole thing, as awful as it has been, has actually brought us closer. We're both seeing things clearer now. I spent so long being angry at her, feeling betrayed and wondering how she could choose this man over me. But seeing how calculated Greg was and how skilled he was at isolating her and making her doubt the people who loved her most, I understand it better now. It doesn't excuse what happened, but it helps explain it. My mom wasn't just blindly choosing him. She was being groomed, manipulated, and lied to by someone who had done this before and who knew exactly how to break her down. She's been going to therapy and working through a lot of the guilt and shame she feels for letting him in. She told me that one of the hardest things has been realizing how many red flags she ignored, how many people tried to warn her, and how deep in denial she had to be to believe Greg over them. But she's doing the work now. She's acknowledging it all, and that means something. She's also decided that once all the legal stuff is over, she wants to sell the house. She said it just doesn't feel like home anymore. Too many bad memories, and she wants a fresh start in a smaller place, somewhere closer to me. I told her I'm open to that, but I also want to keep healthy boundaries between us, especially after everything that happened. We're rebuilding, but it'll take time. I've started seeing a therapist too, and it turns out that being disowned and kicked out of your childhood home on the word of a manipulative liar really messes with your head. I've been working through a lot. Anger, hurt, trust issues, all of it. But I'm getting better. I'm not at full forgiveness yet, but I'm inching towards it, slowly. I know now that Mom wasn't acting out of cruelty. She was under the control of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. That context helps. It doesn't erase the pain, but it helps me process it. Financially, things are still messy. A lot of mom's assets are frozen or under investigation, and it'll probably be months before we know what she'll recover, if anything. But her lawyer says Greg's criminal charges are actually good for her civil case. It proves intent and shows that she was targeted, which strengthens her claim that the documents were signed under duress or manipulation. A few of her friends even started a GoFundMe to help with legal costs, and people have been incredibly generous. That part has been really touching, watching her community rally around her like that. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic. This has been one of the most painful, bizarre, emotionally exhausting things I've ever gone through. But there's light at the end of the tunnel now. Mom's learning to stand up for herself again. I'm learning how to forgive and rebuild trust. We've both learned some very hard lessons. Her about protecting her independence and not letting someone isolate her from her support system. And me about the importance of empathy, even when you're hurt. We're not all the way healed. Honestly, we're still somewhere in the middle of this mess, but we're getting there. And I believe we'll be okay. Thank you again to everyone who's been following this saga, offering support, advice, and encouragement. Your comments help me stay grounded through one of the hardest chapters of my life. I'll update again when there's more news, but for now, I'm just breathing a little easier, finally. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.